Wouldn't it be nice if everything went exactly the way you wanted? Every day was Saturday. It was always sunny outside. And if every player that you actually wanted fell to you in your fantasy baseball draft. Well, that ain't happening. But you know what? Let's use our imagination and let's see what would happen if we could have the perfect, but still realistic fantasy baseball draft. I'm going to tell you exactly where I would want to pick and who I would want to pick in every round. You might be able to pull this off or something close to it, but this is what I'm aiming for in my drafts. I got plenty of videos where I talk about specific players and deep dive into them. Of course, your sleepers, your league winners, breakouts, all of that. And so I will still explain my picks, but this is more about the strategy than the players themselves in terms of why they're going, where they're going. I'm just going to break this down based on who I would want to take each and every round based on where they are expected to be drafted. That's a big point there because, of course, every draft is different. I'm looking at it from a typical 12 team size league, and I'm looking at the current ADP. And I say current, I'm talking here early February still. So, things will change, but for the most part, the early part of the draft it's pretty much set. People will draft based on how players finished last season in fantasy and their expectations for them. Now, the first question is, where do you want to pick? Of course, you don't always get to decide that because, your draft pick might be based on last year's standings. It might be a random, look at the draw thing. Who knows? But I can't control that either. I'll just tell you if I did have a choice, or if you're one of these leagues that uses like the Kentucky Derby style where you could set a preference, I would say I got two main choices. Now, I almost originally went with number 4 because, well, I do feel like there's a pretty decent drop from the number 4 pick to the rest of the first round options because, of course, you got your Otani, your Judge. Bobby Witt Jr. is almost consensus number 3. And then number 4, you got Juan Soto. And Juan Soto has proven that no matter what team he plays for and no matter what the situation is, he's always going to give you that super mega high floor. Throw in a little twist here. I mean, the batting average, of course, is always super high, but especially was high with Washington. And then he gave us some more power when he was with the Yankees. And then last year, offset some of those others with suddenly randomly stealing a ton of bases. He's just always going to be a stud. I'm not questioning it anymore. So I would not mind picking 4th and on the way back get a guy that I think could go in the first round, at least should be Jackson Churio. The problem with that is you're going outfield, and then your options to turn on the third rounds are not as desirable. Could do like a Turner or a Neto at shortstop, but I actually decided no, I don't want to go 4th. If I'm going to pick somewhere else, I'm going with the 9th pick. All right, let's figure out who we're going to take in each and every round. I'm going to go through 15 rounds because that's enough that we can field an entire lineup, plus give you 5 starting pitchers and even a pair of closers. Real quick before I get to the draft board, quick favor, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, just take a second, click that subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously. We're on the way to try to get 10K before opening day. Help us out. Now, if you did see my league winner video from earlier this off season, well, first of all, if you haven't, you can go check that out afterwards, after we're done with this one. But you know that the player I'm targeting in round 1, if I don't have a top 4 pick, it's Ronald Acuna Jr., guy who's been a league winner before, guy who certainly has the upside to be just as good as every other first round pick except for maybe Otani Judge, right? Nobody can quite reach that level. Although I don't know, can you do it? What if he does get back to his, base stealing ways? He gets up to like 50, 60. I don't know that he'll ever get 70, but anyways, like he didn't run that much last year. Of course, coming off the ACL, we knew that was going to happen. And we were hoping that the trade-off was going to be the power and the average. And we got all of that until he got hurt again. Okay, so obviously there's risk here, but I'll tell you what, he still has the highest ceiling out of any non-Otani Judge player, I think, in round 1. And, there's all these other options there. You can't say that none of them have at least some sort of red flag or concern at some point. We've had injuries, we've had some, let's say diminished returns. We're still expecting, like waiting for that next level for a guy like Julio Rodriguez. Ellie was last year, was it because of the injury, or is this just what we're getting? Is he going to run less? And so, look, there's some degree of risk to all these options. I'm just going for the guy with a high ceiling, and it's Acuna. You figure another year removed from that injury should be close to full strength. And for what it's worth, if Acuna is taken before pick number 9, that means probably one of those other guys, either J-Rod or Corbin Carroll, has probably dropped. Okay, with one of them as a fallback option. All right, now in round 2 on the turn, I'm hoping, and it is definitely possible based on current ADP, that you could land Gunnar Henderson, guy who would have been a first round pick if not for the fact that, let's face it, disappointing season last year. Injuries were partly to blame. At the same time, I mean, he still did rack up 651 plate appearances. So some people will say, well, it's not like he missed this huge chunk of time on the IL. He was a little disappointing, especially in the power category. I mean, obviously going from 37 home runs the year before down to just 17. So some people might look at that and think, well, maybe that was the outlier year, right? The 2024, where he had all those homers. Absolutely not. All the metrics show he has still got it. The bat speed in 91st percentile, average exit velocity 89th percentile. The problem is the launch angle. His launch angle sweet spot was in the 9th percentile. He just couldn't lift the ball enough. And that's because he really wasn't healthy almost all year. Came out more after the season, we found out that the shoulder impingement was really what caused these problems. He couldn't really get his swing where he wanted it. He missed time at the very beginning. In fact, right before opening day, it was an intercostal strain, and that's what sidelined him just a little bit until the season started. That's not really what the issue was. It was this shoulder thing that we didn't really hear much about until later. And so if he's good to go, which it sounds like he is, I mean, we could see, well, the 2024 version, if not better version of Gunnar Henderson. I'm taking a chance on that upside. It sounds like he should be fine for opening day. And he really could take his game in fantasy wise to another level, because to make up for the lack of power, he stole 30 bases last year. Could we see 30-30, maybe 40-30 type of performance? Absolutely. And for what it's worth, if Gunnar Henderson has already been taken, you know what? Frankie Lindor is probably there for you, and not a bad alternative. All right, round 3. I know this point feels like we're just taking on the injury discounts. Well, not really that much, because, again, I'm not worried about Henderson at all. But number 3 here, Yordan Alvarez. All right, that's probably the first thing you think of, injury, because this guy missed so much of last season. It feels like he didn't play at all. I mean, really, he barely did, but this isn't the first time he's hit the IL. He's missed chunks of time in the last couple of seasons. And so you feel like this is a risky pick. I don't. It's been a variety of injuries, right? That's the one thing that I think does concern me most. It's not just the same thing over and over. And last year, there were 2 different injuries that bothered him. But again, we're not talking about a guy coming off, a Tommy John surgery, not somebody who tore his Achilles, not these serious injuries. It was inflammation. It was, kind of these nagging things that really you think, like, how did this take so long to heal? I don't know. The Astros will not tell us, but whatever. Yordan Alvarez should be fine heading into the season, and already said he plans to be the DH pretty much on a daily basis. That should keep him healthier. But the best thing is that on at least Yahoo and ESPN and most platforms other than NFBC, actually, you can stick him in the outfield. You don't have to clog up a DH spot. Grabbing an outfielder here, one who, let's face it, has league winning upside in round 3. Are you kidding? This guy, not last year, but just 2 years ago, 2024, he was the number 16 overall hitter in terms of scoring as far as Yahoo rates it. And 2 years before that, he was number 15 overall. I don't see why he can't get to that point as long as he stays mostly healthy. Now we're 3 rounds in. I know some of you are just dying and itching for me to take a picture. It's like, you got to have one of those aces. No, you don't. Like, I don't. I am totally fine waiting until, at least I'd say a few rounds. You'll find out exactly how many to take my first starting pitcher. I do not need to have a Screwball or a Skeens. It's nice, right? There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't have to do that, because we all know that, generally speaking, early round pitchers, and I mean early, the first couple rounds, they just usually give you diminishing returns, and it's just a lot riskier. I'm fine waiting here. So in round 4, I don't know, sorry, this might be a boring pick, but I'm going with Matt Olson. I mean, talk about a floor. Number 1, before I address the home run and power totals, let's just talk about one of my favorite stats here for hitters. It's plate appearances. Matt Olson is the new Iron Man. I mean, he's played all 162 games, all 4 seasons he's been with the Braves, 4 straight years, not sitting out a day. That means no fewer than 673 plate appearances since 2020. But we're not drafting him just for showing up every. We're drafting him because he's got massive power. Don't think he'll ever reach, the heights of his career year a couple years ago, but it's okay. He doesn't have to. Give me mid-30s, potentially 40 home runs. And like I know, last year was a little bit of a down season for him and really the whole Braves offense, but that's why, in part, I'm betting it can't be that bad again. Acuna, of course, I'm already betting on him hopefully staying healthy all year. I think Riley also, some things were off with him. I don't know about Ozzy Albies, but let's just say I hope he can't get worse. I think just overall his offense does at least come together a little bit and improve on last year. But Olsen, really, he showed some improvements in the second half at least. He slashed 287, 372, and 506 with 12 homers just the last 2 months. And you know he's giving you solid numbers, high floor, and I'll take that at first base. If Olsen's gone, look, you're really not getting a big difference if you go to Rafael Devers. Moved to San Francisco, didn't really hurt him that much in terms of power. He's still swatting home runs. He's going to qualify at first base now. I'm totally fine with either one of these guys, really. Now, I could wait another round, and I'm okay with it, but you know what, right here, I do see a pitcher I like. I don't want to wait too much longer to grab my SP1 with, again, super high floor. Logan Webb isn't the most exciting young pitcher. I don't care. I don't want excitement. I want the guy who's going to deliver counting stats, and you know he's going to do it. I mean, he's kind of like with Matt Olson. He's like the Iron Man for pitchers here. 4 straight years, he's been top 3 in the National League in games started. Last year, led the majors in innings pitched, was one of only 3 pitchers to top 200 innings. It's a rarity, hardly happens anymore, but for Webb, it's just a yearly occurrence. And partly because he's out there so much, but also because he saw a little spike in his K rate. He wound up 3rd in the majors with 224 strikeouts. Again, that's a huge edge. Just that amount of strikeouts you're going to get from him weekly. I mean, he is solid. He has not had any injury histories. He's in a great pitcher's park. He's going to be out there. And that's what I want from my SP1. I want a guy who's a real anchor. And if you play in a league that uses quality starts instead of wins, which you really should, I mean, even better because Logan Webb led the majors in quality starts. Slight concern, maybe, will that strikeout rate dip back to his normal level? Because it seems like a little bit of an outlier, you know, the spike all of a sudden at the K rate. But I do think that's partly because he adjusted a bit. We saw last year he used more of the sweeper and the cutter, less of the changeup, but because of that, the changeup was more effective. He used it in certain spots, and so the strikeout rate on that changeup actually went up despite the usage going down. In my fallback here, if Logan Webb has already been taken, you can just get a guy like Max Fried and lock him in just the same. Now, this might surprise some of you, but in round 6, I'm actually going to take a closer. You know, I've always said, in fact, I just put out a video saying you don't need to get a closer early. You can wait and get some saves late. That's always the case, right? That's always been true. You can get saves from surprising sources, but that doesn't mean you don't draft a closer at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I don't need to spend a round 3 or 4 pick on a guy like Edwin Diaz when I can wait. And I do like to have at least one kind of surefire closer who's got elite stuff without having to get him in the first few rounds. Well, here we go, round 6. I'm going to tab Yohan Duran. You know, the Phillies have been a little aggravating in the sense that we haven't really ever known who's been the closer for the last couple of seasons. Well, now we know. They acquired Duran last year. He's the guy, no questions asked, and he still is an elite closer. Now he actually has a chance to get regular saves without a guy like Rocco Baldelli messing with him and only getting us like one opportunity a week. He should get a ton because Philly last year was second in terms of team saves with 47. Duran is a flamethrower. He's got the highest fastball velocity out there and the highest ground ball rate. That's exactly what we want to see. Still a really high K rate. And so, yeah, he's one of those I consider elite closers who's not necessarily going for what I would consider an elite price tag on draft day. And if he's not there, I'm fine with Cade Smith of the Guardians too. We know this is also a team that always gets save opportunities, which is why a guy like Emmanuel Clase, before he made some really poor decisions, was the league leader in saves and one of the best fantasy closers the last couple of seasons. Well, he's probably not playing ever again, but Cade Smith takes his place. Now, round 7. Is this a reach? I don't know. I don't care. I'm doing it. I do not want to miss Hunter Goodman. And if you've seen all my videos this preseason, you already know why, right? Hunter Goodman is the guy I'm tabbing as this year's real breakout. You say, well, he had his breakout season last year. I think there's more to come. Look, there are more catching options that are actually tempting here in fantasy draft day than before. You don't have to necessarily go early. Now, I kind of treat catchers the same way I treat relievers. I don't want to be the first, you know, to pay a premium and get a guy like, let's say, Cal Raleigh now in round 2 or one of those top options in the first couple of rounds. But I don't want to be the last in my league to take a starter at the position either. I like those mid options here, the guys, you know, ranked between, like, say, like 5 to 8 at the position that I can take in the middle rounds and still have that upside for more. And to me, Hunter Goodman just fits that bill perfectly. And if someone has really ticked me off and taken Hunter Goodman before I could, look, I'm fine taking my boy from the Marlins, Augustin Ramirez, one of the very few catchers who now, like former Marlin JT Realmuto, could help you with some power and also steal bases. Might actually have a 2020 threat behind the dish. Round eight, we're still going to fill up that lineup. What about a guy like George Springer? I mean, coming off his huge comeback season, you almost hate to take a guy who just all of a sudden saw his stats go up so much because you feel like now he's bound to go back to what we saw in 23 and 24. Look, maybe it will. Do I expect George Springer to put up the same type of season he just came off of? Not necessarily, but we know he has done this multiple times. Didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, it had been a few years till we see that level, of stats, but still, he can get you at the very least 20, 25 home runs. He'll steal you some bases. He'll do a little bit of everything in every category. And that's the type of player I like to get here. And look, this Toronto team is still legit despite losing Bo Bichette. If Springer's gone, I like Seiya Suzuki for a lot of similar reasons. Power and speed, plus the run and RBI productions from a guy who's hitting in the heart of a really good lineup. We're in the ninth round now. Let's go back to pitching. We're not playing it safe here. Let's just go for pure upside. I love, well, really a couple of young pitchers here, but I like Nolan McLean, the guy who, if you looked at my top 25 prospects for redraft video, he's at the top of that list. And why shouldn't he be? You saw what he did last season, and just imagine what he could do over the course of a full season. I'm going to take a chance on that upside. There are going to be plenty of other starting pitchers later that you feel could get you that floor. Now, we were kind of safe with our first pitcher with Logan Webb, although I don't feel like that was a boring pick. But still, Nolan McLean gives you that tremendous upside. And you know what? I am just as happy, although it's a little riskier, if I take Yuri Perez of the Marlins. Absolute flamethrower guy who could dominate. The injury risk and the control issues are a little bit more in question than a guy like McLean, but I want one of these guys here. Right now in round 10, let's fill third base because I still have a thing for Jordan Westburg. I know he's been a little inconsistent. He's had some injuries, and is it all going to come together? I can't guarantee it, but I do feel still good enough about the player, and he's going to get every day at bats. So I'm going to draft him here. And look, if you'd rather have the veteran option of Alex Bregman, I wouldn't blame you for it. Westy is my pick, though. And I noticed this is the second pair of teammates I've got in that lineup. Went with Acuna and Olsen for Atlanta earlier, and now I have to combine with Gunnar Henderson, got Westberg. Not doing this intentionally necessarily, but of course, I'm going to put together players from the same offense if I feel good about it. And you're getting a better discount here on these Baltimore players because, of course, nobody expects great things from that offense. I think if all those things, those young players that they have, everything kind of comes together and gels, this could be a above average offense. I think that the run RBI totals will be fine here. And Westberg right now, well, slated to hit right in front of Gunnar Henderson's second. So it stands to reason if one succeeds, the other will as well. 11th round, it's finally time. I don't even know if I can wait this long, but I got to get my boy Luke Keyshaw. I'm going to talk way too much about him again this preseason, but here we go. I'm putting him at second base. Can get you a high average, can get you some steals, and I do think if those two things happen, of course, he will score a bunch of runs. So Luke Keyshaw is just one of my favorite players, period. Yeah, I'm taking him as soon as I can get him. On to round 12. Let's go back to pitching here. Again, there are a lot of tempting options. I'm going for upside, and so a couple of young pitchers I like, but the one I think we have to agree clearly has the highest ceiling. It's Jacob Mizorowski. We saw flashes of dominance from him last season. We also saw some of the wildness kind of creep back in. I mean, he had those bouts of wildness in the minors where he would walk a bunch of guys, but I mean, the K rate could be outstanding. He could mow down hitters. Of course, we need him to stay healthy as well. I'll take a chance here on the upside. And if you want something that's, I guess, a little bit safer, you could go with Cam Schlittler of the Yankees. I like him a whole lot too. And then round 13, I'm going to go with another Brewers pitcher because I feel like Brandon Woodruff is getting a little disrespected. Look, I had doubts last year coming off an extended absence. How sharp would he be? He was razor sharp right away, and we saw that really low 0.90 whip, was not walking batters. He was getting strikeouts. I mean, it's all good at this point. The only thing keeping his ADP suppressed is, once again, some injury concerns, which are legit, but it was nothing major there towards the end of the season. I've got to take a chance on that veteran. Even if he doesn't give me, let's say, more than 150 innings, I mean, those should be some very effective innings. It's good enough. Now we're down, I think, lower in the draft here. You don't have to worry that much about him being out there. He could be replaced with one of your later options. If you want someone who you feel a little better about, then I mean, you could probably tab a guy like Sonny Gray here, maybe even Shota Imanaga. Going pitcher again in round 14. I really like Ryan Pepio of Tampa Bay. To some extent, you want to think that, well, what you've seen is what you're going to get, right? Maybe there's not more here, which is he's solid, kind of a decent, SP4 type for your fancy rotation. But we could see him taken up at least to a slightly higher level this year. And don't forget last year, Tampa Bay playing in that minor league park back in the dome this year, that could help him a little bit. So I like Pepio. I think some people are sleeping on him. I also like as a sleeper because we haven't seen him in the majors yet. In this range, you could get Tatsuya Imai of the Astros. I broke him down in my international prospects video. And our last round here, I'm going to get my other closer before we get to the land of misfit relievers. Let's tab a guy we know is going to be the ninth inning option because Ryan Walker was that after Camilo Doval got traded toward the end of last season. And look, I dog Walker all the first half because he was just off. He was bad. I don't know what was going on there, but he definitely righted the ship in the second half and was looking like himself again. I think there's another team that's going to be at least sort of in contention and they're going to win close games. Pitcher friendly park. We've seen him do it for a season. I think whatever happened last early part of the season was just a blip. I don't mind taking Walker. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, that his ADP is so low. And if he's gone or if you just don't like Ryan Walker, fine. Look, Daniel Palencia also for the Cubs. Don't see why he wouldn't resume his job as a closer for a team that should win a ton of games. So he's a pretty good option too. There you go. First 15 rounds of my perfect draft. I hope your draft goes as perfectly as possible. Of course, increase your chances of having that happen by checking out all the draft advice we have on this channel.